All right, so next we'll move on to our sign-in user API endpoint. So let's create a function to handle that. So similar to the registration API call, right? We'll need to make an API call to the sign-in user API endpoint and get our response data back with the with a sign-in WebAuthn response. So we can parse that and pass it into our AS authorization controller. So let's start off with that. Okay, so we'll do func, and then we'll call this one begin WebAuthn no, not registration. This time it's going to be sign in WebAuthn. Um, you know what? Let's call this one something else, actually. Let's call this one get sign in response WebAuthn. And then we'll add our anchor as a parameter. Okay. All right. And let's set our anchor. Okay. All right. Next, we'll add our URL request. So fire that request. Okay. And then we'll add in our sign in user API endpoint. Okay. All right. And then let's see, method's going to be a .get, and then response data. Bring this up. Take this response data in. Okay. All right. So now we can add a switch statement for our response status code and add our cases and fill out our error or unknown cases first before we fill out our case 200. So we'll do a switch statement on the response data dot response dot status code. Okay, so first status code, let's do case 200, and then yeah, this will be everything goes well. Next, we'll do 401 on authorized user. So let's do a print statement. So we'll do unauthorized user error 401, and then this is will be a good place to present our alert. Uh, in this believes alert 2, yeah. Okay. All right. Case dot sum print unknown response, and then we can add string of response data dot response status code. So we see what unknown response code we got back. Okay, in case there was none at all, we'll just print response not found. Okay, all right, and I believe we need to add something here. I'll just put a print statement for now. Successfully. Let's just put successful for now. Okay, all right. So next, we need to figure out what to, yeah, we need to figure out what to do after we get a successful response. So in this case, we're going to handle and decode our sign in with response. And let's start off with do catch block, since we need to do some decoding, JSON decoding. Okay, so let's sign in data response decoded equals try JSON decoder dot decode. Okay, so what do we need to decode, right? We need to decode our sign-in WebAuthn response. So just to show you, we have it structured right here, our sign-in WebAuthn response, and we can go back here just to show you. Let's see if we go down to authentication. Okay, so this will be the options that's returned back. Public key credential request options, because on authentication, just to look a little bit more into it. As you can see right here, similar to our on the left side on our sign-in WebAuthn response that we created, this will require a challenge, timeout, RPID, allow credentials, user verification, and then if you want to look in a little bit more about the allow credentials, what type it is, a public key credential descriptor. See if I can find that here. Yeah, right there. Look into that. Let's see. Right there. Here we go. Lists out all the types of authenticators. And yeah, so pretty much you could look at a little bit more in the WebAuthn library, Swift library for this. All right, so let's go back. Okay, so we'll go back to our do catch block. Okay, and we'll pass in our response to, I believe. Let's see. Actually, we unwrapped. Did we unwrap this? Let's see. No, it doesn't look like we have. Okay, so we need to unwrap the data first. So if let data equals response data dot data. Oops. Okay, then we'll pass in our data here. Okay. All right, looks like it went well. Except we need to put that self here. Okay. All right, there we go. And then if everything goes well, we have our with our sign and response right there, right? And this would be a good place to handle that response. But in this case, let's add also an error decoding sign in response. Okay. All right, and if everything goes well with the decoding of the sign-in with response, we'll then use it to, like I said, to start the sign-in process with our passkey, right? So let's get started with creating the sign-in response function for that. Okay, so we'll put it down here. Okay, so we'll call this function sign in with response. Okay, so it takes a response in of type of our sign in WebAuthn response, right? Okay, open that up. Okay, all right, so first thing we need to do is similar to our begin, let's see, to our begin WebAuthn registration, we need to extract these objects out of our response, right? So let's do that. Okay. So, first thing we could do the challenge. So let's do let challenge. Oops, spelled it wrong. Response string equals response dot challenge. Okay, and then we also need to turn into data. Let's see. Challenge base 64 URL decoded data equals our challenge response string dot base 64 URL. Yep, decoded else return. So in case that's an error, decoding our data, decoding to data. So we'll put print error decoding. Okay. All right. So let's see. We'll move on from here. Okay. So next thing we need to do is to instantiate our AS authorization platform public key credential provider to create the assertion request using our domain and challenge, right? So let's instantiate that. So we'll instantiate our request with assertion request, and we'll get that from our AS authorization platform public key credential. Let's see, credential provider. Let's see. I believe this is, yep. Okay, and then we add our domain, and then actually, I'm sorry, this should be the public key credential provider. Okay, and then we use that for our assertion request. Okay, let's try that now. So we use our public key credential provider, and then we create an assertion request with our challenge, and that challenge will be our base64 URL decoded data. Let's type data. Okay. All right. So I believe next we will instantiate the auth controller using and passing in, our variables here. Okay. So let's start with our let auth controller equals AS authorization controller. The second one, an array of AS authorization requests. So for this, well, it's an array, and then we just pass in our assertion requests. Okay, and then after that, we just like, similar to our begin WebAuthn, we just set our delegate for a presentation context provider and perform a request. So, I'll just copy this, make it easier. Okay, and that's it for our sign-in WebAuthn response. All we have to do now is insert this function into our success case right here, right? So sign-in response. You know what? It's probably going to be a self sign-in response. And we pass in our sign-in data response decoded. Okay, let's see. And that should be it. Okay, so with all this, the user should be able to register and log in using Passkeys. The only last two functions that we need to go over is signing out and deleting the user accounts. They're a little bit more straightforward, but other than that, we can move on to that on the next video. But with all of this, the user should be able to sign in now next time after registration, of course. But yeah, these are all the functions for registering a WebAuthn account or registering with WebAuthn using Passkeys and signing in. So we can move on to the next one, next video on signing out and deleting user accounts.